everybody to ITSM Academy. I am Donna Knapp. I am the Curriculum Development Manager here at the Academy. I always like to start off by answering the most frequently asked questions. Is this being recorded? Yes, it is. And are the slides available? Yes, they are. They're up on our website. If you're not familiar with the Academy, we are a full service provider of IT service management related education, and that includes adjacent ways of working like DevOps and Lean and Agile, site reliability, engineering. Before we go too awfully much further, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody, and some of you are in the audience right now, who reached out to us in the last couple of weeks. For those of you who don't know, the majority of ITSM Academy's employees live in Florida, and our beloved Nina lives in Mexico, all areas that were affected by the storms in recent weeks. We thankfully had no significant impact at all. Our communities were impacted, but we personally were not, and we're super grateful for that. And we're grateful for you all. So thank you so much, and thank you for attending today. So we're going to talk about AI and IT service management today, and I bet you anything you all have already attended a ton of webinars about AI and IT service management and all of the benefits that it can bring. And you see a lot of different examples here of how we can leverage AI. And a lot of times we are talking about AI in the context of how we can embed it into kind of the day-to-day activities that are involved in IT service management. I don't want to talk about that at all. So are there tremendous benefits? Absolutely. What I want to talk about is using AI to optimize value streams and processes. So first of all, let's do a little taxonomy conversation. Underpinning the service value chain of your organization, which is really the operating model of your organization in terms of how it takes demand and through a series of activities, create designs and develops and delivers products and services that enable value realization for your organization, its customers, its stakeholders. Underpinning that high level, macro level service value chain are value streams, and your value streams relate to how you design and develop and deliver products and services. Value streams are closest to your customers because, again, they relate to your products and services. There's not a leader out there today who isn't challenging, the organization to speed up, to at the same time we're speeding up, ensure the quality and stability of our products and services. So if you really want to make an impact on those organizational goals, you have to be thinking about your end-to-end value streams. Value streams are underpinned by processes, multiple processes. Value streams typically span multiple functional areas within your organization. Think about a value stream like onboarding new employees, where it spans multiple functional areas. There are many different processes involved in onboarding new employees. So we have our process level. Processes are underpinned by procedures, and typically we say that processes define what to do, procedures define how to do that work. And then underpinning procedures are very often task level activities, and task level activities tend to relate to what a single individual person will do. So why is this important? Why do we need to understand this taxonomy? Because what it does is let us kind of like zoom in or zoom out, depending on the level of granularity that we want to look at and address, right? What it is that we're trying to improve. So how do we typically adopt AI in organizations? Typically, we start at the bottom of that taxonomy with task level automation. And it makes sense. This is where your quick win opportunities are going to be. This is very often where we can free up human beings automating manual activities, allowing technology to help us do things more efficiently, right? Free up human beings so they now have the opportunity to work on higher value add work. And from a lean perspective, if we're talking about a value stream perspective, always what we want to be thinking about are those value adding activities. Where can we optimally eliminate waste, or where can we minimize waste? And if we can't eliminate it altogether, is there an opportunity for automation? So on the right-hand side, you see task level automation, and this is stuff you're likely already familiar with, right? We're using chatbots for user support, letting AI log tickets, route tickets, categorize and prioritize tickets, right? We can also use it, and it's been used for years now, for things like predictive analysis and reporting analysis. So there's already a lot of great work being done within organizations and by the tool vendors in the IT service management space that support that task level automation. Awesome, right? It's good stuff. Then we have process level automation, where we're starting now to look at end-to-end workflows. And why is this important? Because we know that, and you likely know, that queues are waste. If we have a bunch of work that's stacking up in queues mid-flow, right, mid-process, very often it means we've got some type of deficit, right? We lack adequate resources to handle that work. We maybe pulled work into progress before we were really ready to, and so we got a little bit done, but then threw some additional balls up in the air in front of that work and had to put it aside. So process level automation is where we try to improve speed, accuracy, consistency of our processes, how work is getting done. And in the end, that also helps human beings, right? Because now we have technology supporting us in doing our work. Historically, organizations have started out with practices like request fulfillment, right? Many of you likely have service catalogs where you're automating kind of the end-to-end fulfillment of certain types of requests. Asset discovery and asset lifecycle management is really a tremendous opportunity for process level automation, especially today when we're living in the as code age, right? When we're deploying and supporting infrastructure as code, right? And we now have the ability to kind of very effectively automate the provisioning of equipment. And then monitoring and event management again has been around for a long time, but now we see the emergence of things like AI ops platforms, and we see observability being introduced, which is really, again, enabling us to leverage the capabilities of AI in order to improve monitoring and event management. And optimally, we get to a place, and everything we've been working on, dev, ops, value stream management, right? All the different activities that we've been working on in recent years have all been designed to help us build quality in at the source and optimally prevent incidents from happening, right? So the better we are at things like monitoring and event management, the fewer incidents that we're going to see along the way. Again, great stuff. Herein lies the challenge. We run the risk of what's frequently referred to as local optimization. If we're not thinking about that big end-to-end value stream, we run the risk of, yes, improving in one area, but to the detriment of another area of the organization. There can be really unexpected consequences when you start to automate work at this lower task level, or even at the process level. So yeah, maybe we get really good at categorizing incidents, but if the AI isn't working effectively, we may be very, very quickly routing incidents to the wrong team, and that team is then going to become overwhelmed. Sure, we can use AI to prioritize incidents and requests. But again, if the AI isn't working effectively, we could be spending a lot of resource, a lot of effort handling something as a high priority. And in the grand scheme of things, it's really not. And it's something that maybe there are other activities, there are dependencies, there are other things that we need to do first. And so what do? We create a bunch of excessive work in progress that we know translates into waste within our organizations. So we have to understand what's happening at the process level. And we have to, perhaps more importantly, understand what's happening at the value stream level. And I think those of you who are familiar with IDLE 4, this is one of, but for the guiding principles, which we love, this is perhaps the greatest contribution of IDLE 4, is challenging us to start thinking about things at that value stream level and really understanding end to end how work is flowing across our organizations, really looking at how we're managing our resources so that work can flow. Again, if we have bottlenecks, if we have, queues with a lot of work sitting stacked up, it means that there's some type of resource constraint there. How do we address that constraint? We can absolutely use AI to enhance communication. And anytime we communicate more effectively, it's going to translate into a better experience, both for us as employees of organizations and for our customers. So again, I don't want to discourage task level AI optimization, but let's all understand that it can't stop there. And chances are that's not going to necessarily support the overarching strategy of your organization, and it's perhaps not going to give you the true benefits that are needed to support your overarching organizational goals, which tend today to be things like growth, right? And speeding up and enabling a positive customer experience. So take it up to the value stream level. And when we talk about value streams, there's typically only a handful at a generic level, a handful of value streams that we're talking about within organizations. There's your product life cycle, right? How you design and develop and deliver the products and services that are what your organization offers. The customer journey, how your customers interact with your organization and with the products and services of your organization, service request fulfillment, and incident resolution. And when I talk about incident resolution, don't think about this necessarily as just the incident management practice. Think about it as a value stream. Monitoring and event management can, for example, detect the fact that event has occurred that rises to the level of an incident. It can trigger an incident. In order to handle that incident, we need to interface with knowledge management, with problem management to see if there are workarounds. Maybe we trigger a change in order to resolve that incident, right? So think about all of the practices that can underpin that end-to-end incident resolution value stream. This is all easier said than done. I get it. So it's very typical to see organizations start thinking about that value stream level later in their AI journey. We have, first you have to kind of wrap your head around AI and how it can be leveraged. Then you want to encourage people to experiment and learn about how to leverage AI. And it absolutely, again, makes sense that they may be starting with, and they should be starting with their work and continually improving their work and looking at how they can use AI to do that. But again, understand, and you can see the benefits on the right-hand side, the true benefits, those benefits that are going to most support your organization's strategy, most support your organization's overarching goals, are going to occur at that value stream level. And it really does require us to kind of rethink how we're working within organizations, because again, we can't think about this. I mean, we are an IT service management community, but we have to understand and recognize that if we introduce AI only in IT or in those, if it's only introduced by those folks who are involved in developing or managing or supporting IT, and we're not thinking about what's happening upstream in terms of how we're planning, making portfolio decisions, how we're, prioritizing the projects that we're going to work on from the strategic level standpoint, if we're not thinking about kind of more continuous budgeting and business analysis activities that are really kind of needed when we start to speed up the flow of work, we're not going to have the end-to-end benefit. And same if we're improving part of a value stream, but not what's happening downstream in that value stream. Again, we're not going to see the end-to-end benefits. So the benefits are tremendous when we take it up to that value stream level. So how do we do that? Some of you I know out there are certified process design engineers, and we appreciate that. And those of you who are not, this image is derived from the ITSM process design guide, which is the basis for the certified process design engineer. This is my third child, the third book that I published, and the second edition of this is in the works right now. And you're actually going to get some sneak peeks into what that second edition looks like in this presentation. So understand that regardless of the level you're operating at, again, the value stream level, the process level, down to the task level, there are phases of process engineering. Those phases include requirements definition, understanding what the requirements of our customers are, and always remember that value is from the perspective of our customers. There's process analysis, where we're typically looking at your as-is environment and doing a little bit of gap analysis in terms of how that as-is environment either meets or doesn't meet the needs of your customers. There's process design and implementation, where we're now moving to how do we close that gap? How do we design our target to be process? How do we then introduce that process? And a big part of process design and implementation includes the organizational change management aspects of changing processes. Anytime you change the ways that people are working, we have to be thinking about things from the organizational change management. And then continual process improvement. How do we monitor the performance of our processes, and how do we begin the cycle again, right? How do we make sure, how do we listen to our customers and to the practitioners who are performing those processes day in and day out? Make sure we understand how their requirements have likely evolved since we made our last round of changes. And again, we begin again. So now let's talk about this in the context of AI. And just to give you like a little spoiler alert, you're going to see this running theme that AI can support every aspect of these phases of process engineering. So let's begin with requirements definition. Traditionally, with requirements definition, we would do things like survey our customers or survey our employees to understand employee engagement, customer and employee satisfaction. We would do things like needs assessments, where we would go out and do a series of interviews to really talk to our customers and understand their expectations relative to how we're delivering products and services. And I don't want to discourage those in any way, shape, or form. I think the organizations that are going to be most successful with AI in the future are the ones that protect the human aspects of their employees and who respect the human aspects of their customers. AI is a tool like any other tool. If once we lose, and this is going to be next month's webinar, Lisa just said, right? Once we lose our humanness, right, we're in big trouble. So having said that, AI absolutely can support how we gather requirements. So for example, historically, surveys were kind of a challenge for organizations. First of all, people don't fill out surveys. And secondly, we've always had to like kind of craft these surveys in such a way that we could report on them, right? So we crafted these questions and we have like click on this smiley face or answer in a scale of 1 to 10 so that we could kind of chart it out and easily analyze the feedback we're getting. Today we have things like natural language processing. Today AI can be used to do a lot of the work that historically had to go into analyzing kind of the free form aspects of those surveys. Again, a lot of times we try to craft these questions that we could report against, but very often the gems that helped you most were in that little aside comment that somebody made associated with the question of, is there anything else you'd like to share, right? AI can process all that data. It can process all that feedback. It can also now look at alternative sources of feedback. So it can be looking at X and it can be looking at LinkedIn and it can be looking at kind of other places where people are commenting on your products and services and the experience they're having with your company and process that information quite effectively. It can also quite effectively translate that into requirements and populate your requirements backlog for you. And that requirements backlog might be a typical backlog that you populate with user stories. It could be a continual improvement register, right? Just any place where you keep your requirements. In an agile environment today, we want to be kind of maintaining that backlog and understanding that we're constantly getting new requirements. AI can also then help you manage that backlog. So it can help you to categorize requirements. It can help you prioritize and reprioritize. And it can look at a lot of different criteria. What's the effort that's going into this? What's the resource that's going into it? What's the business value associated with this requirement? Are there any dependencies, right? Again, does one activity need to be completed before another? In some organizations today, they've got a tremendous amount of technical debt that's sitting in their backlog. And understand that you can have technical debt, you can also have cultural debt, you can have process debt, right? And there may be some things that you may need to pay down that debt a little bit before you can move forward. And again, AI can help with that. Activities that typically went into building a business case for doing something, cost benefit analysis, even just helping to kind of formulate and articulate what the benefits are for making some improvements. AI can help you to craft that. Now, you never want to kind of, again, give up the critical thinking that needs to go into, does this, is what the information AI is providing, does it make sense? Does it in fact support our organizational goals? But even with that, you can feed to AI what your organizational goals are and ask it to, provide information in the context of those goals. It can help you formulate experiments. Think about notions like A/B testing that are very widely used in the software development world today, but we can apply those same concepts to how we think about process design, right? Let's do a little bit of experimentation. If we make certain changes, will they in fact meet our customers' requirements? Or if there's alternative ways of doing things, today we have to accept ambiguity, right? There's not always one right way of doing things. AI can help to formulate those hypotheses and help us formulate experiments. And then certainly it can help with things like transcripts and summaries. I mean, look what we're doing today. We're living in the Zoom world. Some of you may have AI turned on as we speak that's transcribing this for you. It can summarize things quite nicely for you. It can identify action items coming out of those activities. So tremendous benefits in the area of requirements definition. So then we have process analysis, and this is typically where we're looking at our as-is environment And we're trying to understand how our as-is environment is performing relative to our requirements. So typically coming out of this, we have a gap analysis. Today, AI can help tremendously in terms of enabling process visualization. It can, kind of bring out from the different event logs that are being captured in your tools. It can kind of make the process level activities visible. There's tools today that can do automated process discovery, because again, they can monitor your workflow, and they can capture very, very quickly what are the transition states that your work is going through, what are the activities that are being performed within those different states. Automated process mapping capability. AI, I did an experiment just recently where I fed it kind of a traditional procedures document, like a written procedures document, and I asked it to map out that activity. So it can, and it can do those kind of things very, very easily. Now, is it going to be perfect? No, but it's going to give you a starting point for those types of activities. Certainly things like performance analysis. And, historically, with all due respect to all the IT service management vendors out there, historically, our IT service management tools haven't given us great reporting capability. A lot of times we've had to export our data to, some other product, and then massage that data in order to get good reporting. So AI can really kind of move us forward in that area, because it can start to gain some insights in terms of the types of data that we're capturing and how that data correlates to our workflow activities. Predictive insights, it can start to understand where there's the potential for bottlenecks, where there is the potential for inefficiencies, perhaps before we're even aware of it. And this is, again, kind of the challenge with doing task level automation is, like at an individual level, it might feel like, okay, this is great. It's speeding up my ability to do my work very, very quickly. But until you get up to that value stream level, and it's very often said that inefficiency is viewed in the white space between value activities, right? It's those places where you're handing off from one part of your organization to another. AI can see that. It can, and it can even foresee, right, where you potentially are going to have inefficiencies and bottlenecks. It can do conformance checking. So for those of you who have, and we've been hearing this a lot lately, we've been hearing a lot that organizations are being challenged to think about how we're satisfying audit requirements, and how can we do that in the most efficient way possible, right? We know that we don't want to tack on a bunch of controls at the end. That's just going to slow work down. So how can we ensure that as a normal part of doing our work, we're producing the evidence and we're satisfying the controls that are needed to show compliance with laws and regulatory controls? And also certainly scenario simulation. Again, things like A/B testing, it can really help us understand what are our options in terms of improving our processes. Typically, historically, we've aimed to kind of design this perfect process. And the reality is we can't do that. No process was ever perfect. And if we do try to design a perfect process that takes into consideration every single scenario, we're likely going to take longer than we have, right, in order to make improvements. So let's let AI help us understand what are the possibilities, right? What are the different ways in which we can close this gap between how things currently are and what our requirements are? Then we have process design and implementation. And I love this phase because it's like, essentially 3 simple little words that represents a massive amount of work, right? This is where we're designing our processes, where we're now looking at how we can support these processes with technology. The implementation activity is where the rubber meets the road, right? We put all that into the hands of our practitioners, and we start to then monitor how we're doing. One of the nice things about AI is it can do simulations for us. So if we are thinking about making changes to our processes, to our current as is processes, we can run simulation tests to see, would this in fact smooth out our bottlenecks? Would this in fact enable, us to be more efficient with this particular process? If you know anything about the theory of constraints, one of the things that it states is that every process has a bottleneck or a constraint. And if you're not addressing that constraint, you're not really going to improve your end-to-end flow. So AI can help with that, but here's what we have to understand. When you break a constraint, all you do is move that constraint to somewhere else in your process or in your value stream. So again, simulations can help us understand that. It can help us understand the impact of process changes that we're thinking about making and what that would mean either upstream or downstream from that constraint. So here's where, process automation, process orchestration, which typically talks about how we flow work and information across multiple processes. So my scenario from before, how monitoring and event management works with incident and knowledge and problem and change enablement. Orchestration is how that work is flowing across those processes. And then optimization, right? Helping with workflow optimization. And kind of like, outside of our tool aspect, and I'm talking in that context, our tools that we're using, like our ServiceNow tools and our BMC tools and so forth. It can also help a lot with documentation updates. Documentation is one of those things that people in IT historically hate. But we need to have a process repository where our process definition documents live, or where our procedures live, where, that place that we go to understand how work is being done within our organizations, and understand that from an audit perspective, very often, this is what auditors are going to be looking for and what they're going to audit you against. AI can help to produce that documentation initially. It can, if nothing else, it can help you to populate a template as an example, and kind of produce your initial draft of your documentation that human beings can then come in and validate. And again, it can support dynamically keeping that documentation up to date, and ensuring that when people are using tools to support these processes, they have access to the most up-to-date documentation. So then we have continual process improvement. And we have to make sure that we understand that, and y'all, those of you who know me, I'm a big Deming fan. What did Deming say? He said, plan, do, study, act. Plan, it's often misunderstood as plan, do, check, act, but study the results that you're getting. So AI can tremendously assist with anything associated with data, and having the data-driven insights that enable you to know how your processes are performing and where you have the opportunity to optimize those processes. And if you think about, again, a lot of times what bogs us down with IT service management is having those queues of work and having resource constraints, having AI, being an extra pair of hands, so to speak, that can be constantly monitoring how your processes are performing, and where necessary, rerouting or rerouting work or reallocating resources can enable you to, tremendously speed up the flow of work, but also, and perhaps more importantly, create a sustainable pace of work, because that is what it's one of the fundamental lean premises, is that we have this sustainable pace of work. that we don't have to feel overwhelmed, that we don't have to, kind of constantly feel like I have too many balls in the air and I can't get anything done because, my brain cells are being chewed up by all this work in progress. AI can also support things like capability assessments, building out your model, your criteria that you're going to use to assess your processes, and then leveraging AI to understand how you're performing against that criteria. Even in terms of helping understand what are the metrics that we should be producing, and really understanding how those metrics are performing, AI can help. So understand that AI can, whereas traditionally we've had to kind of export all of our data, massage it, create reports, perhaps manually produce reports, AI can be providing that information. It can be even suggesting additional information that we need to be monitoring. And perhaps most importantly, it can suggest improvements and feed those improvements into your requirements backlog. And again, the cycle begins again. So all that sounds awesome, right? And I'm sure some of you are thinking, but is this reality? Are we early days with this? Yes. But in kind of recent weeks, I've been talking to folks who are involved with tools like ServiceNow and BMC, and those tools have already introduced AI capabilities, and I'm talking about that focus on these process design and activities that help you to design your process workflows, that help you to monitor your process workflows, that help you do that reporting and analysis that enables you to continually improve. It's still early days for ITSM tools that are oriented more to smaller and medium-sized businesses. So Freshservice, Manage Engine, Sys8. But trust me, those vendors are actively working on providing that capability. And while they may not have all of the robust capability that some of the bigger platforms do today, they're getting there. And so be talking to your vendors and gaining an understanding of what capabilities they already have, leverage the existing capabilities, and then keep asking for more. Vendors are listening, right? And they're trying to figure out how to leverage AI. It's probably the single most competitive advantage that the tool providers can give today is that ability to fully leverage AI. So again, how do we turn it into reality? First of all, we have to accept the underlying assumptions that come along with AI. On the left, we have the tech stuff. On the right, we have the human stuff. So much of this is dependent upon data, the quality of your data, the models, and I'm talking about either large or small language models that your products are leveraging. Why do we hate chatbots on any given day? It's very often because they can maybe answer the simple questions, but they can't answer those more complex questions that we have. And why is that? It's because the model, right, the data model that chatbot is using isn't robust enough. So we have to start thinking about the data. We have to have defined performance indicators, and this always, from an IT service management perspective, has to roll up to what is your organizational strategy? What are your organization's goals at the highest level within your organization? And again, AI can help you then understand, how do we cascade down from those high-level strategic goals to what are the improvements that we need to make in our process, and what are the things that we need to be measuring in order to know that we're really moving that dial, and be able to demonstrate, be able to show proof that we have in fact moved that dial. Historically, with IT service management, it's been tough to connect the dots between making improvements from an operational efficiency standpoint, and kind of roll up those benefits to the strategic level. But we're getting better at it all the time. And the value stream management movement, for example, is really helping with that. We need to have automation ready processes, which means, first of all, we have to understand what a process is. And I guarantee you, in some of your organizations, you're still having those discussions, and this is great. What is the difference between a procedure and a process? What is the difference between a process and a value stream? What is the level at which we're thinking about those activities? If you're doing something wrong and you automate it, you're going to do it wrong faster. So you really have to understand that the foundation for automation is a repeatable, high quality process, right? Strong data integration across systems. And we've had this age-old debate in IT, is it Jira? Is it ServiceNow? Today we have DevOps tool chains with a myriad of tools associated with that. Stop with the tool wars. There's this thing called APIs that let tools talk to each other. So really meet people where they are. Look at the tools that you're using in your organization. If those tools are working, how do we then get those tools to talk to each other so that we've got information flowing across that end-to-end value stream? Continuous real-time data flow. Real-time is critical, right? It's how we're going to get those true data-driven insights. If we still have people who are manually logging tickets or manually updating tickets, and they're not getting around to updating their tickets until they have some time to do it, you're going to get, right, ineffective results. So really, we have to figure out how we can leverage technology in order to capture data as close to real time as possible, so that AI can then leverage that data to help you to make real-time improvements. And then we need effective knowledge management. Knowledge management is one of these practices that we've talked about for years, about how important it is, and yet in a lot of organizations, it doesn't get the attention it needs to get. And so we really have to recognize that when we talk about things like models, right? Language models, we're talking about knowledge management. So this is one of those things that everybody can start doing today, whether or not your tool vendor has some of these great AI capabilities already. You can start thinking about your data and how you can improve your data and how you can get better at capturing knowledge, so that when you do have greater AI capabilities, you've got the data that's needed for that. The human stuff, we all have to be open to change. I just said to someone yesterday, so I'm like T-4 years from retirement, and I vacillate, like, throughout the day on whether I'm thankful that I'm getting ready to retire, or I wish I was early in my career and all this stuff was happening now, because it really is cool. But the reality is we all have to be open to change. It is what it is. AI has become ubiquitous. We have to be willing to understand that every aspect of work as we know it today is being disrupted by AI. And so we need to get in front of it. We need supportive human oversight. Again, if we lose the human aspect of how we work, how we interact with our coworkers, how we interact with our customers, we're going to be in deep trouble. Nobody's going to be happy. My friend Mike Cardinal talks about the AI overlords, right? Nobody's going to be happy when they take over. So we need to kind of maintain that, hold on tight to that humanness. Cross-functional collaboration. We've been talking forever about the need to break down silos. It's never been greater. And here's the cool thing. When you start talking about work at the value stream level, you will, in fact, see those silos start to break down. We have to trust AI insights and recommendations. And in the same breath, we need transparency in AI decision-making, right? One of the things we have to do is be very, very skeptical, and we have to apply critical thinking when it comes to the information, the results that AI is providing to us. That's, again, where that human oversight comes into play. And we have to really be transparent in terms of how we're leveraging AI in order to make decisions. so that that decision-making process is understood, and so that we can reflect on that decision-making process somewhere downstream. Again, this is plan, do, study, act, right? In its purest form, because it's not going to be until years down the road that we're going to really fully understand the impact of AI. We're reeling from it a little bit now already. You know, down the road, we have to be reflecting on always what the impact of AI is, not only on our work, but, on our lives going forward. So focus on continual improvement, get clear on goals, and again, really be clear at the highest level within your organization. What are those overarching goals? And start today talking to the Gen AI application of your choice about how those goals translate into your work, and how what you do can support those overarching goals, especially when it comes to process engineering and how we approach changing work. One of the really cool things about this, and of course I say this, but I think one of the cool things about AI is that process engineering is all of a sudden in vogue, because everybody is looking at how can we leverage AI in in order to improve, not or to do, perform, execute our processes first. But then we're coming to this understanding that if you start to leverage AI to do a process, that's going to change the process itself. And then we have to think from the process engineering standpoint about what the new process looks like. If AI can eliminate work altogether, if AI can significantly change where or when or how work gets done, the process itself has to change. So process engineering and value stream engineering, right, are something that a lot of CIOs and COOs in organizations are talking about today. Understand the capabilities of your existing tools. Again, in the IT service management space, there is a lot of great capability already provided, and again, it's not just the ServiceNows and the BMCs. You would expect that of them. But even in some of the platforms that, again, are more oriented to small and medium-sized businesses, we're seeing them bringing in that AI capability, and they're looking constantly about how to enhance that. So before you think, oh, we need to get rid of our existing tool and buy the tool that has the most AI capabilities, figure out what your existing tools already have, max that out, use it to the max, use it to learn, right, how to leverage AI. And then if you break the tool, right, if now you're ready to move beyond that tool, then you think about a new tool. Launch data quality and knowledge management initiatives. This is something that you can do starting today. That's not going to cost you a lot of money. It doesn't involve buying a new tool, but it does require that human beings really sit and look at what data and information is needed by your processes, and at the value stream level, what is the accuracy and the completeness and the quality of that data. And also think about knowledge management, especially in organizations where we have a whole generation of workers that's getting to retire. If I were you, I'd be like sucking vacuum cleaner hoses to their brains and like pulling that knowledge and that experience and that insight out and feeding it into your models so that you don't lose it along the way. Invest in upskilling and reskilling programs, and that begins with understanding process engineering. Understanding that there is, in fact, a process. In CPDE, we introduced the 10 steps for process design and improvement. You saw the 4 phases of those 10 steps. But there are processes for designing and improving processes, and there are long proven methodologies like lean and the Deming cycle that you can use in order to design and improve your processes. We also have to think about basic AI literacy and basic digital literacy. I taught high velocity IT a couple of weeks ago, and we kept talking about how much digital has changed the way we work and requires us to change the way we think. Things like critical thinking and problem solving, so that we make sure, and down at the bottom, I talk about learning from failure and how important it is with AI. Here's the cool thing about AI is, if you approach it, with a childlike perspective, with a learning perspective, you're going to use it. You're going to go, well, that didn't produce the result I thought it was going to. You're going to realize you didn't do a prompt correctly, or you didn't program something correctly, and you're going to try again. And there's this ongoing experimentation, and that learning from failure is critical. It helps us to actually kind of build really solid critical thinking skills, reflecting on the results we got, problem solving. Why didn't we get the results that we wanted to get? Making sure that we're always, introducing that kind of skeptical eye that enables us to provide that human oversight in terms of the results we're getting. Invest in automation and data integration. And again, always encourage experimentation and learning. And this is something, leaders in organizations really need to understand, that this doesn't have to be some big program where we have a massive project and we're devoting all kinds of time and effort to it. Just encourage each and every person in your organization to, on a day-to-day basis, be looking at how can we be leveraging AI more effectively. We have to consider the human experience. So on the left, we see what people might feel. On the right, what we want, right? We really do want, and we should be excited about this. It is super cool. AI can do a lot of amazing things. And, I know I personally every day am continuing to learn about and constantly trying to understand, right, how AI can be leveraged. So that inherent curiosity will always serve us well. That go back to that childhood why, right? Why does that happen? Or how does that work? Relief, right? Because the technology can, in fact, relieve a lot of the toil and take away a lot of the toil that is part of our day-to-day jobs, the manual activities, the parts of the work that we hate, like maybe the documentation aspects of things. It can help us with those things. So if we learn to use it effectively, right, it can let us get on with just having fun and doing the cool stuff that we like to do as part of our job. Counter to anxiety, fear, resistance, right? So it's really critical to understand that in every industrial revolution, and Mike Cardinal and I did a presentation on this, in every industrial revolution, jobs are destroyed, but new and very often better jobs are created. So what's important is that we not be afraid of it, that we really start to think about, okay, how can I use it to not only benefit myself professionally, but for the benefit of my organization. Notice that skepticism lives on both of these lists, right? We do, in fact, have to be highly skeptical, and we should, in fact, be questioning the results that we get and challenging the results that we get, and that's okay. It's a good and healthy perspective. There are no silver bullets. There never have been silver bullets. This isn't one of them. This isn't going to be one of them. And shame on any tool vendor out there that's trying to sell that as a bill of goods, that just it's going to solve all of your problems. And the organizations that are going to fail at AI are the ones who think it is, in fact, the silver bullet, who don't invest enough in it, who don't honor and hold on to the humanness of their organization. Those are going to be the ones that are going to fail, because they're going to put a big technological barrier between them and their customers, and that never works. We want to be confident and we want to feel empowered. And this is where learning from failure needs to be such an important part of our mindset today. We have to understand, and I like, anybody who knows me knows that, like, I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I used to really beat myself up whenever I made mistakes. And I'm always thankful that I kind of got over that. And that I've learned, right, that very often it's in those mistakes that you learn the most. And they can give you then the confidence to try again and to, reflect on what happened there, and maybe what's a better path that I can take. So again, we really want to be always making changes with people and for people and not to people. Empower people to figure out how they can leverage AI in their day-to-day activities. So I already mentioned that one of my favorite aspects of Vital 4 is the Vital 4 guiding principles: start where you are. AI can support every phase of the process reengineering life cycle where you start, whether it's at task level improvement, whether it's broader process level improvement, end-to-end value stream optimization is really going to be up to things like your organization's goals, what its existing pain points are, how mature your organization is in concepts related to process engineering. And again, if in your organization you're still having these conversations about, what are our value streams, or what are our processes, what's the difference between a process and procedure, that's awesome, right? It's a great starting point, and you go from there in terms of improving your maturity and readiness, and really also understanding what are the bodies of knowledge that already exist that I can leverage in order to improve the maturity and capability of the organization. Lean, agile, DevOps, IT service management, frameworks like ITIL, right? There are tremendous bodies of knowledge out there already that can help you. And then you have to look at resource availability, right? Are you allocating time, and are you giving the human beings who work in your organizations the time and the education and the training that they need in order to help the organization leverage AI? So I already said this: AI is a tool like any other tool. It's a ubiquitous tool. It's everywhere today. It's affecting not only our work lives, it's affecting our lives, right? How we interact day to day. But like any other tool, it's only going to be as effective as the skills and the intentions of the human beings who deploy and use it. So I hope you found this useful, and I'm super curious to hear if there are any questions. So who's helping me with questions? Lisa, Nina?
I'm here.
Questions? Did we have any questions?
We do not have any yet. I think you made a couple of really good points. I would love for you, because I still say tweet it, but I still say dial the phone. So there's that. Say that again, what you said about make sure that we do it for people, not to people.
You should always make changes with people and for people, not to people.
I love that.
So
Yeah.
collaborate with people. I mean, here's where, again, if we talk about it from a process engineering standpoint, can AI help you to identify requirements? Sure, it can, right? It can analyze your surveys, and it can ingest like how people are responding to your thumbs up, thumbs down type of feedback mechanisms. But you still have to get out there and talk to people and collaborate with people and go to Gemba, go to where the work is being done and talk to the people who are doing the work. We if we lose sight of that, we're in big trouble.
So Troy has a really interesting question. He's asking how to start with multiple organization and a centralized support team. And I think to me, that all comes down to the prompts. One of the things, and this is very specific to chat, one of the things I'm actively working on a post-class asset that's a list of chat prompts to give to our learners that's going to help them move their service management programs forward. And it sounded like it was going to be a simple thing. It's turned into a pretty complex, and I sort of had to move it forward and then think on it a little bit more, because I want for it to be very simple, but the nature of the data that's available is so comprehensive. So, first and foremost, teach it about your organization. Specifically now talking about chat, any questions that you want to ask chat to get some assistance with, tell it who you are and about your organization, so that you don't have to repeat that information every time and explain that you guys are a support center who supports X amount in a centralized, and your timeframes are and your hours are. The more information that you provide to it, think of it as a new employee. Like we were joking before, I call my chat GPT Gwen. Um, and so the more information that you're going to share with your new employee, the more that it's going to help. But then, Donna, in context of value streams, I'll let you answer that. Sorry.
Um, so I guess I'm going to, first of all, I have a question, Troy. When you talk about support team, are you talking about like service desk, desktop support? Are you talking about a centralized support team that is supporting the processes and the technology enablers that you're using? That, so I guess I would start there. But I think always, the reality today is for many organizations, we have moved to where we have maybe a relatively small central IT organization, and then we have IT professionals who are embedded into our different lines of business because those lines of business are different. So always what I think is important is letting your centralized team be viewed as enablers. So they may provide, they may be the ones that develop the skills and the capabilities that are needed to analyze, to engineer processes or to leverage technology in support of those processes. And then and they serve as enablers, right? So then they go out and help the lines of business to understand how to do that in the context of their particular part of the business. And part of what's rooted in this is having that idea that you can have a common vocabulary and common ways of approaching things like process engineering and ways of working, but then adapt them, right, again, for the needs of the different lines of business. So I hope that made sense. One of the other questions I saw is that I mentioned the term cultural debt. So think about the culture of your organization and think about how culture has to change in order to embrace new ways of working. So are you a very highly risk adverse organization, and yet your leadership is saying we need to speed up, we need to make changes more quickly? So what you have to do is then shift the risk profile and the risk capacity of your organization. Think about leadership styles. If your organization has a very traditional command and control way of working where leadership makes all the decisions and tells everybody what to do, but you want to be more agile, right? And you want to be able to, again, move more quickly, then you're going to have to learn to devolve authority, and you're going to have to learn to kind of respect and empower people and kind of move decision making and authorization type activities to lower levels of your organization. That's a massive culture shift for some organizations. In some organizations, they have a very toxic culture in terms of work practices. I very often, as a young consultant, one of the things my mentor taught me was to always be the first person in the door and always be the last person out the door. So, right, I spent, the most of my career, right, working probably more than I should have as a human being. So how do we create a sustainable work practices to where we do now have the ability to kind of balance work and life, that we don't leave work at the end every day completely exhausted and completely frustrated, right? And a lot of that has to do with understanding lean and understanding, how wasteful a lot of what we do on a day-to-day basis is, and how can we eliminate that waste so that we can all get on with doing work that we really enjoy and that really does in fact contribute to the overarching purpose of the work. So I could go on, but hopefully you get the point, right? Cultural debt is kind of those firmly entrenched values and principles that are part of your organization, but that may have to change in order to embrace modern ways of working.
Donna, speaking of going on, we are actually a little over time.
Oh, okay. I'm
I-
sorry.
I've got, no, it's okay. We have at least one more question. Lots of compliments, of course, because it really was great. And as I said, next month is going to be our friend Smojo, Simone Jo Moore, and she really is going to have a very people first perspective that I think is going to be a great add-on to what we learned here today. So you'll be getting the invite for that in the coming weeks. And for those of you that have to run, thanks so much for being with us today. You know, we never sell in these webinars, but I am remiss to not say, if you're considering any education next year and any of this is what you want to move forward with, I would really encourage you to look at our certified process design engineer course. That's the course that Donna referenced. It is across our entire portfolio, 20 years in, my single favorite course in our entire portfolio. I still use the knowledge from that course every project that we do here at the Academy. So I just, sorry for that sales pitch, but it really was just friend to friend. If you're going to do something next year and you don't have your CPDA, that's what I would recommend that you do. There's so much value in that course.
And the
Okay.
March class will actually also reflect a lot of what this, it will be a completely new release that reflects a lot of what we talked about.
Because it's
I
going to
would
be
add
based on the
in,
third baby.
I would add in AI Ops Foundation, because if you're just new to AI and you're looking to understand the language, like the lingo and the different types of AI, AI Ops Foundation is a great little course that can kind of help provide that that education.
Oh, and Angel, thank you so much. Is saying a good thing to review is the state AI executive order for the government employees because it talks about guidelines and frameworks. And I'm not
Yeah.
familiar with that. So that's a good tidbit for us too. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And one of the questions that I got was, and if you need to leave, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to just keep answering the questions. We'll keep the recording rolling. So if you need to leave, you can kind of pick up at the tail end. But one of the questions I got is, how do you sell this vision in small and medium-sized organizations? And that's an awesome question, because I think you do have to understand what is, first of all, what is your leadership's perspective on this? Because, some organizations are all in, fully embracing. Some organizations do not trust it, are very afraid of it, and are actually encouraging employees not to use it. So you have to kind of start there. But I think too, what you can do is educate yourself a little bit on how to mitigate the risks associated with it, so that as you do start to make presentations to the leadership of your organization about how it could be leveraged, you come at that with that ability to present those counter arguments that their concerns might be. We don't want to put, sensitive. I asked somebody recently, kind of one of the top skills that people have to learn in order to understand AI. And their response was cybersecurity, right? Of really understanding kind of what it means to be putting our data out into a public domain, or possibly putting our data out into public domain. So that's where understanding different Gen AI models, for example, and understanding what Gen AI models do in fact ingest what you've put into them, and add that to the model, and which ones do not, right? Kind of start with understanding that, so that you can speak to, if there is a concern, or if there's a perceived risk or a valid risk, how would you mitigate those risks? And then things like this report, that AI executive order guidelines and frameworks, right? The information like that can help, bolster your case. If any information you can get in terms of who's already gone down this path, and how are they addressing the concerns and the risks, add that into your business case. And then the other thing I would say always is start small, right? Just start with a small little experiment and just start with a small little proof of concept that isn't anything that's going to make anybody nervous, and introduce risk into your organization, and then go from there and build up from there. And last, I'll say collaborate with other people in your organization, especially people within your lines of business. If you work in IT, be talking to the people within your lines of business and really kind of cross, the aisle, so to speak. We're in a political year, so we're all hearing that phrase, right? But really get clear on what are the business goals and how what you're doing can support the business goals. And a lot of times that comes by collaborating with people who work in the lines of business in your organization.
Hey, Donna, I don't see any other actual questions, but we certainly have many people hanging out still. So if Donna and I
Nice.
both blocked out some time, so if you do have any other questions, comments, and questions about anything else that you feel like Donna or I might be able to help you with, feel free to throw them in. Nina
Well,
just put into the chat the letter of attendance that you can use for those of you that have any membership, whether it's PMI, People Cert Plus, but the letter of attendance is good for one contact hour, PMI, PDU, CPD, whatever you call them in your world. So, please be sure to download that.
Yeah. So Troy answered that he's talking about a central team that does production support across IT organizations. So, you can start with just kind of start on the back end by making life easier for your production support agents, right? How can they leverage AI in the handling of their day-to-day tasks? So, and you probably have, I don't know what tool you have, but it's likely your tool has some capability in this area already in terms of logging tickets, maybe in terms of categorizing, prioritizing tickets, in terms of suggesting solutions. Work on your knowledge management, work on your data, and work on your knowledge management capability, right? Because again, if you're a support organization, you not only need for your agents to have access to good knowledge resources, but a next step could be to use AI, things like chatbots, to let your customers or your users then have access to that information. So, work on your data, work on your knowledge management capability. I mean, I think it's an awesome starting point because already, this is an area where most of the tool vendors today, IT service management tool vendors, have been working for years in terms of enabling support teams. And it's only really in the highest performing organizations that you now see them starting to extend that AI capability to the external customers of their organization. So kind of start with helping the people do their jobs more efficiently, and then help your customers do their jobs more efficiently.
So Troy, a follow up to that, said we have ServiceNow that has a team that we have to work through. And, my advice there, Troy, is to, personally, I would use ChatGPT to figure out what this is. But what value add do you have? Like, instead of get to work with them, instead of have to, try to think of it as get to, right? Because there's a group of people with expertise that you and your team don't have. And I know that's almost motherly of me to say that, but it's just a life philosophy I have. When I say I have to, I think, no, Lisa, you get to. So you get to, and then, I would use chat and the rest of my real team to figure out what can we position as a value add to get time with them, where instead of it being a push and a pull, we're in some kind of great collaboration that's moving the organization forward. That's my thought there.
And the thing I would add is somebody is making decisions about what that ServiceNow team works on. And it might be community practice, it might be a service management office, I don't know, somebody is directing those activities. So any way that you can get insight into how those decisions are being made, and look at how then you can build out the business case for how they reprioritize what they're working on, and again, if the answer is that today AI is super low priority, because I don't know, they're working on some, I don't know, cosmetic aspects of how the tool works, then your opportunity is to build out that business case for, look at, how much human resource we could free up if we automated away some of these activities, or if nothing else, we augmented their work with AI, and build out the business case. And as Lisa always says, use Gen AI application of your choice to help you build out that business case. And you can, if you say to whatever Gen AI tool you use in the context of IT service management, right? What activities can we automate? You can kind of use Gen AI to help you build out that business case.
Troy, I'm just curious, do you know, is the team planning on moving to Xanadu? You guys on DC now? Because I haven't really looked into it yet, but I understand the Xanadu, I mean, ServiceNow is making it the holy grail in terms of how they're marketing it. The silver bullet, as Donna would say.
Yeah, I mean, there's a capability called Now Assist that embeds AI kind of into workflows. It can embed AI into process automation and optimization. And that, again, that's that Xanadu release is kind of that next generation of ServiceNow that provides a lot of that capability. And I think that, I don't care what tool you're using, but if you're not maximizing the capabilities of that tool, you're spending money. And in the case of ServiceNow, you're spending a lot of money, right? On it, what's the old analogy? It's like you bought a Ferrari and you're treating it like, I don't know, a Kia. I don't know. I'm not a car girl, but you get my point, right? You bought a, Mercedes and you're only driving it around, New York City streets that require you to stop at red lights every 5 minutes, right? So kind of understand that you've got at your fingertips a great tool. And so I would be always, and we talk about this in CPDE a lot. I would be looking at how those teams prioritize their work, and is that work that they're doing to enhance ServiceNow really benefiting your organizational goals and your organizational strategy? Or is it just, I don't know, addressing the whims of, what's the old squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? Somebody's been screaming they want this or they want that. And is what they want really in support of your overarching strategy?
Donna, I think for you, maybe you bought a microwave with advanced cooking capabilities, and all you use is the 30-second reheat and the popcorn button.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that fits better.
I don't know why. Sports analogies and car analogies I should never try to make, but
Yeah.
I pretend I understand this stuff, but yeah. And
Going
I love to
to
hear you
Greenfield.
say, I think we're going greenfield, because that's awesome. It's like, use the tool, right? Use the tool and use the capabilities that vendor is providing to you. These vendors are all fighting tooth and nail right now to get ahead of each other in terms of how AI is being introduced into the products and leveraged in their products. And you're not going to have the ability to use that AI capability if you've so heavily customized the product that you're 3 releases back from where the vendor is. So very often ServiceNow kind of says that, go back to basics. I think years ago they had a little back to basics campaign where it was like, they understood that a lot of their clients were just buried under, heavily customized versions of the product, and they weren't able to take advantage of the capabilities. So just recognize that difference between configuring and customizing, right? And figuring out how you can leverage the inherent capabilities that tool provides you, and then and max it out, right? Just use every bell and whistle you can until you break it.
I'm gonna just add to that every bell and whistle that offers value to your organization.
Sure,
Because you,
absolutely.
right, you like there's yeah, I think about that all the time. Like in Toy Story, the neighbor Sid that created those ugly toys that, when I think about API and integration, and I'm always like, but don't make a Sid toy. So there is that.
Yeah, true, fair, absolutely.
Right. Any
All right, well, that was fun.
yeah, I think there's no other questions. That's what I was going to say. Troy, if you want to get some time with Donna or I just to talk a little bit more about it and, our ideas and suggestions, just reach out to us. There's a link on our website to schedule a 30-minute meeting. We're not trying to sell you anything. We're here to help. We're still 20 years later. We feel really blessed. The ITSM community has been good to us, and it makes us happy to be good back. So
And I
on that
personally
note.
am always like, I always, I did a whole, we did a webinar on this in the beginning of the year of like, if you look at just pretty much any state of report, a lot of times lack of leadership support rises to the top in terms of challenges that folks are facing, introducing new ways of working. I don't care if it's agile, lean, DevOps, AI. Um, and I always try to wrap my head around why is that, right? What's going on there? The leadership says this is important, and yet then they don't support the people who are trying to make these things happen. So I always love getting insights into, you know, how decisions get made in organizations and how, work gets done and what gets prioritized in organizations. So yeah, it
Donna,
always helps
sorry,
us to understand that.
absolutely. And I've been producing a series of back to basic blogs. I'm putting in my LinkedIn profile right now. They're all featured there. They've been really very focused on idle at the moment, but the one that I'm working on that's gonna drop, I think, next week, is the getting leadership support, and it's in terms of an entire IT service management program, not so specific to idle. And the other articles that I've written are along the same lines. So they're all quick reads. If that's one of the things you're struggling with, you may want to just take a look at those, the last 3 or 4 featured articles there, and the new one's coming soon. So on that note, I got to go write a blog. Bye,
Thank you all.
everyone. We'll see you next month, November 17th. Is that correct? No, November 21st, because Thanksgiving is a week late this year. It's November 28th. So we're going to go on the 21st with Simone. And again, fantastic speaker, fantastic human. And we're really excited about that one. Thank
For
you,
sure.
Donna. You're the best.